Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my Cardfight Vanguard Baromagnes deck profile for post-Raging Flames against Emerald Storm. This is the last deck I'll be doing to update with all of the support from Set 7. I believe there were 10 different decks that got support in Set 7, and Baromagnes is the last one I'll be covering. Big thanks to my buddy Jim for letting me borrow his Baromagnes deck for the deck profile. The deck focuses on just building up a big number of cards in the soul to then use Baromagnes to be able to place all of your opponent's rear guards into their own soul, giving you pressure for your rear guards, being able to call out new ones, giving them plus power itself, and then just having the overall pressure with your Baromagnes Vanguard as well. We got some pretty generic Dark State support in Set 6, and then we just got some additional support in Set 7 to help specifically with Baromagnes. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the ride deck, our starter is Uncanny Burning. When wrote upon, if you went second, draw a card. Our grade 1 is actually Flaming Pony. From the soul, you can bind this card to Soul Charge 2. So just giving you more access to cards from your soul for you to use with this card. So very, very useful, and I would say much more powerful than the other original grade 1 we had. There's really no other additional option that, conflicts with this card as well, because our grade 2 is Electro Spartan. When wrote upon by Master of Gravity, Baromagnes, put a card from your hand into your soul, draw a card, and Soul Charge 1. When this unit is placed on rear, you can Counterblast 1 and Soul Charge 2. You can give more Soul Charge option when you place it on the rear from your soul due to Baromagnes, which is also our go-to grade 3 in the deck, along with the grade 3 from the ride deck. We're also running 3 copies of this card in the main deck as well. When this unit attacks, you Counterblast 1, perform all the following according to the number of cards in your soul. If it's 5 or more, you draw a card. If it's 10 or more, it gets plus 10,000 extra critical. And if it's 15 or more, both you and your opponent put all your own rear guards into your soul, and you choose 2 cards from your soul and call them to rear. And then those units get plus 10,000 power until end of turn. So you can take care of all of your opponent's rear guards, but still get the additional attacks that you can do with your Baromagnes. So 15 is the key number that you want to set up in your soul with this card, but 3 just so you have the Persona Ride option to build up even more into your soul also. I also run 3 copies of Phantasma Magician Curtis. When placed on rear, if your Vanguard is Master of Gravity, Baromagnes, Soul Charge 2. And on rear, if your soul has 10 or more cards, Counterblast 1, and all of your front row units get plus 5 until end of turn. So you use it more for the Soul Charge power, but still an option for plus 5 power for your front row rear guards. Not as necessary though, just because it takes up a lot of the Counterblast, which you do want to save for Baromagnes. Moving on now to the grade 2, still running 4 copies of Selfish Engraver. Just a great early game pressure card. When this unit attacks on rear guard and hits, you Soul Charge 1. And on rear guard at the end of the battle, this unit attacked. If your soul has 10 or more cards, put this unit into your soul and counter charge 1. It could be your counter charge option, so you at least have more counterblasts to use for the pressure that you'll use with your Baromagnes. And then for the other grade 2s, still running 2 copies of Keenly Ludley with this card when placed on rear. If your Vanguard is Master of Gravity, Baromagnes, Counterblast 1, choose any number of normal units from your soul, and this unit gets plus 5 until end of turn for each card chosen, and return all the chosen cards into your deck and shuffle it. So if you do call this card out from your soul of Baromagnes, it can at least save you from decking out, because you'll put a bunch of normal units on your soul back into the deck to at least give this card power for a bigger attack. But once again, this is mostly just to save you from decking out also. And we're also running 2 copies of the new Lilac Lasher, a unit with 2,000 power, but on rear, when this unit attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Baromagnes and its card name, this unit gets plus 2,000 power until end of turn for each card in your soul. So if you have the maximum 15 cards in soul needed for Baromagnes, this could be a plus 30,000 power card, attacking for 32 total, not including the boost. So if you do call it out from your soul with Baromagnes, you can hit for some pretty big numbers, along with the Persona Ride and this card's own skill, being able to hit if you do have that 15 card number from your soul, and still keep it after this card's called out for 42,000 total. And then lastly, we're just running 1 copy of Cutting Sword Dance with this card. If when it's placed on rear, perform all the following according to the number of cards in your soul. If it's 7 or more, Counterblast 1, discard a card from your hand. Choose a card from your soul, put into your hand, and Soul Charge 1. And if it's 13 or more, all your front row units get plus 5 until end of turn. Just a one-of tech. We are missing 1 grade 1 specifically, which could take up the 4th copy of this card. So just player preference if you want to keep this card in, if you're also lacking a number for that grade 1. Moving on now to the grade 1s. From set 6, we had the new Deerful install Amandine. During your turn on rearguard, if your soul has 10 or more cards, this unit gets plus 10,000 power. And on rear, once per turn, you can counterblast 1 until end of turn. When you would soul charge by your card's ability, increase that number by 1. So it's a once per turn option just to get more cards into your soul with a counterblast, and also giving it a plus 10,000 power as an additional power booster on your rear guard for you to use. The card that you could run 4 of in the deck additionally and take out the 1 copy of the Cutting Sword Dance would be Brainwash Swirler. I know this card is pretty expensive if you don't have this grade 1. There are other options that you can increase in the deck. You can add in more copies of Lilac Lasher, you can increase the number of Magician Curtis, or you can increase the number of the next grade 1. It just has a soul charge option when placed, and also a plus power every time you do soul charge. So it is a very, very good card in the deck, and it does have a reprint coming out in set 9 as well. So if you want to wait until that reprint, by all means do, because there's no reason this card should be that expensive. And then for the other grade 1s, 2 additional copies of Flaming Pony, along with the copy in the Ride deck. Just 2 more for the option from the Soul to bind and make up for those other numbers you may have for your Soul Charge. And for the grade 1s, 3 copies of Recusal Hate Dragon and 1 copy of Elementaria Sanctitude for the Blitz Order option, for the no discard, for the triple drive against a unit with triple drive, and then just being able to save cards in hand with Recusal Hate Dragon. And for the orders, we are running 2 copies of the new Magna Reversal Breaker. Play this card with the counterblast 1. If you have a Vanguard with Baromagnes in its card name, use Soul Charge 3, choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets continuous Vanguard if your soul has 10 or more cards. All your front row gets plus 5,000 till end of turn. So it's an easy Soul Charge 3. Just 2 copies of this card, though, since you can only play 1 order per turn, and it does take up another counterblast. We do have some of the countercharge options with Selfish Engraver, but you still want to be able to have this option as an added backup for that additional soul charge, and just that continuous option to your Vanguard to give whatever you call out to the front row the +5. So even if you do have Lilac Lasher, missing out on some of its power, the +5 they can provide from this order could additionally make up for 2 cards you may be missing in your soul, thanks to what you called out with Baromagnes. And then for the trigger lineup, running 4 of the Stem Deviate Dragon. For the additional soul charge option, it's very useful, but mostly just for the additional ability for the critical. For the draw trigger lineup, we are running 7 draws just for the hand consistency, so you can really get those numbers for the specific units that you need for that maximum power. Riley has the +5, and then just Insane Researcher for the aesthetic choice for the Baromagnes deck, with the heals being 2 copies of Diablos Girl Ariana, 1 copy of Brilliant Floral Eulania, and 1 copy of Euphia, with the over trigger being the Galmalgaheld for the additional pressure that this card can provide if you drive check it early game for your Vanguard. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy. Once again, big thanks to my buddy Jim for letting me borrow this deck for the deck profile. And also, like I said, this is the final deck that got support from the latest Set 7 set. So we will be waiting until the Minerva Rising booster set for a bunch more updates to all the decks we have in that set to come. So as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Qualia out.